We talk a lot on this podcast about the importance of knowing yourself and how having a supportive community of which you feel an integral part can really help you along your goals and help you with your mental health. So today we want to focus on how you know you found somewhere you belong and how it can really help you. I'm Cass.
I'm Aaron, and this is Fuck the Plan. And Cass, I noticed that we have something odd going on today. There's another person in frame in your shot today. Please
Yeah.
introduce our guest.
Well, I have no idea who this is. He just showed up on my doorstep and I said, why don't you come on in? Because I didn't want that Beauty and the Beast curse to come on me.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
That's something that's very important to avoid in the year of our Lord 2025.
It really is. I mean, she cursed the dog, so it was really just to
Yeah.
protect Appa.
Yeah.
But no, this is my beautiful fiance. This is Matt.
Hi, Matt.
And
Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing today?
Fantastic.
I'm sure they said they're doing well.
Yep.
So we wanted to have you on today because you've lived everywhere and you've really found a place where you feel like you belong finally. Also, you have a fantastic podcast voice, and I think the audience deserves to hear that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
It's fitting that we're going to talk about community. I usually wear a specific shirt, but I am repping my Eagles gear today, as Matt has his Washington Commander shirt. And I think that that's something we both have in common, is that we've both moved around a little bit. Like, I grew up in New Jersey, in that area, and kind of became an Eagles fan through my dad, and then moved here to New England. And it was rough for a few years, but now the Patriots kind of suck, so it's a little bit easier, having been the last team to beat them. But tell us a little bit about kind of moving around a little bit, how that experience was, just a little bit of your background.
Sure. Quick intro to my life as far as moving around is concerned. I was adopted from Bogota, Colombia, in 1983, and then was raised in Maryland. So we'll fast forward past high school, past college, and my first stint out of Syracuse was in New York City for 4 years. Gave that the old college try.
Right.
My father said, if you're willing to give LA a shot, I will fund the entire move for you.
Wow.
So I gave LA 1 year and quickly said no. Then followed my then girlfriend at the time to Chicago, where I established a base in a murder mystery troupe out there. Before getting tabbed to be a director for that company, and I got to choose where I then relocated in 2014. Boston, New England was a new troupe, so I wasn't going in there to fix any problems or plug any leaks or anything like that. Brand new operation, I could build it from the ground up, and more importantly, I was going to be able to be close to my family.
Oh, very cool.
So I have now reached my 11-year mark. It'll be officially in March, but
Very
March
cool.
will make officially 11 years, the longest tenured region of this blessed country I have lived in as an adult.
That's so funny,
And
because
yep, that's where I
it's just
sit.
about 11 years that I've been in Rhode Island myself too. It's kind of odd that
Yeah.
that's happened.
Mazel tov.
Thank you. Yeah, I moved here when I was 21, for a girl, of course, and then that didn't work out. And I looked at myself and I said, well, I've spent X amount of years building my life here. What now? I didn't feel like there was anything left for me back in New Jersey. No reason to go back there when I had already had a job and friends and a band and all of these things. And I just didn't want to give that up. So I ended up staying here, and then eventually ended up meeting the love of my life and getting married. And now, we're all these years into it, 7.5 years. I've been with Marissa now, and, this is my life now. So I don't see me moving anytime soon. And Cass mentioned to me earlier that, you've kind of found New England as your home, and I think it's cool that you've moved about a bunch. But was the sort of work or trying to break into the arts the main motivator for moving? And is that why you're, staying here now? I just want to know a little bit more about sort of the reasoning or the background.
New York, I probably could have stayed. It would have been a little tricky.
And expensive.
2 years
Yeah.
out of college was our beloved housing market crisis.
Yes.
So then all of the jobs in New York City were then dropping their pay grades.
Right.
So what you would have been doing for $21, they could only pay $16.50 for. So I have to remember that when I chose to move to LA, because I didn't think it was going to be any better necessarily, but I just knew that my financial trajectory was not going this way. It was going this way.
Yeah.
I was getting occasional jobs. I
Acting
did
jobs, is that?
acting job. I picked up a couple soap opera credits.
Very cool.
And then the year in LA, again, for context for anybody in the arts or not in the arts, this was pre-Me Too. And I'll leave it there.
Yeah.
The culture was just it. If something makes you not want to do the thing that you love, it is time to leave that area and do the thing you love somewhere else.
Yeah.
Now,
Totally get
this
that.
was also roughly around the time where other states were giving tax breaks to Hollywood productions to come to their state. And right as I moved to Massachusetts, I believe is when they had that tax credit.
Yeah.
So a lot of projects were coming here. And then when I moved on from Murder Mystery in 2017, I just jumped back in the game. But circling back to your initial question, just it was the moving around was partially where I was and what was going on at the time. And then just better opportunities seemed to spring up, or better chances or places I thought would give me a better chance to thrive kind of opened up. Yeah.
Very cool. And I mean,
And
go ahead, Cass.
I was about to change gears slightly, so if you had something more on this topic directly, you can
Yeah,
go
I
ahead.
was just going to say, I know, but tell the listeners a little bit more about, what it is that you do. And, I know that you're an actor, but kind of tell us a little bit about, what that really encompasses. Because, it's not, I don't know that everybody has the same idea in their head of what that really means. So I'd love to just kind of know a little bit about like what it really looks like to be, an actor by profession.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this phrase could apply to any generation, but I kind of coined the term "Millenaissance man," because if you want to be an actor or any functioning millennial in today's society, apparently you need to know like 3 to 4 trades.
Yeah.
There will be a quiz on this, but over my lifetime, becoming an actor involved being a New York City's Times Square's comedy ticket salesman. I was a promo model in LA. I sold Mr. Sticky lint rollers in Sears's in Chicago and surrounding Indiana and Illinois areas with a script, mind you.
That's awesome.
I've also done simulated patient work. I've dressed up as various mascots and superheroes. I've done, live emceeing. I've done catering. I've done bartending. I've
Little bit of
washed
everything.
dishes. I literally anything and everything in the food service, short of being a boss
Right.
in the food service industry, I've basically done.
Yeah.
Um,
It's funny how like all of us creative types kind of congregate to the food service industry. Like
Yeah.
when
I
you're trying
feel
to do
left
stuff.
out.
Well, maybe you need to
yeah.
go and cook in a restaurant, Cass. It really is an experience that everyone should have. I think it's a very humbling experience. I believe it was Anthony Bourdain who said, like, you don't know what it's like to stand in between a hungry diner and a $38 pork chop. Like that's a level of pressure that people don't understand, and it's why I'm so empathetic to the service industry now.
Right.
You know, what
And
I
why
mean?
some of my actor friends can't actually physically watch The Bear on FX because
That comedy.
God.
apparently, yes, the comedy,
The comedy.
known as The Bear
Yeah, that show is
triggered their
PTSD.
PTSD the
Oh my
second to
God.
last episode of season 1,
It
and they
is.
haven't recovered since.
It's
So
PTSD-inducingly accurate to what it's like to work in a restaurant, especially
I felt my chest constricting, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh boy.
Yeah, it's
So,
like
that's what the pause button is for. But,
yeah.
some people
It's so
can't.
crazy because like that show really captures that feeling that like no other show has. Like unless you've been in like a crappy family-run restaurant where nobody has any money and you're just struggling to get through the day and like actually do something that you want to do. It's actually, if you think about it, it's kind of a perfect microcosm for what a lot of us are trying to do. It's like we have these things that we want to do because it's our passion and we care so much about it. But then the way that industries are, it kind of just beats you down, and you have to have this like inhuman perseverance to keep going and doing that thing that you love. Like it's so much more difficult than taking the easy way, quote unquote, and finding, like a boring job that you don't like.
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said I didn't consider OnlyFans during the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean,
Like many of us
I
did.
haven't seen your feet, but I'm sure they're very nice looking. You could
Yeah,
probably
I
clean up
didn't
on
even know what my
OnlyFans.
market was, so I shut it down right before.
Why do you think that I agreed to marry him if not for the feet? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, he's got to be a feet focused type of relationship with you,
obviously.
Cass, as far as I know. But
So, your jobs out in the catering industry and in the bartending industry and things like that, they have gotten you some very cool stories. From serving deviled eggs to Cloris Leachman to meeting Adam Sandler at one of his big parties and stuff. You have some really cool stories, and you had some really exciting moments that most people would really cling to, but you were still able to decide this is not the environment for me, and to move away. So what was your thought process on that? And if you have any really fun stories to share, you can go ahead.
Fun stories as far as like the service industry one. Yeah, the Adam Sandler, Cloris Leachman stuff is cool. Anthony Bourdain himself came back and said hello to the kitchen staff at a New York City catering job.
very cool.
And he was a very nice guy. I could name names. I could go on probably for another half hour, but it's like you said, I decided that I didn't move to these places to give deviled eggs to famous people as much as that paid the bills at the time.
Yeah.
If you want to be an actor, you do have to have that, I don't want to say sense of like egotistical perseverance. That's a nice way of saying like just ego.
Yeah.
But you have to believe that at one point you will be the one being served deviled eggs. I know that's a terrible way of putting it.
That's a great way to put it.
But it's the best way I can
profound.
think of it right now, is because, like, do you move to a place to do the thing you love, to serve the people that you admire, or do you move someplace to do the thing you love to eventually just be happy about it? And if some admiration comes along the way, that's cool too.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah,
is
that makes a
exactly
lot of
why I
sense.
think LA wasn't a great fit, because the people
No.
in LA, there's a lot of admiration first mindset and not do what we love.
Right. And it's more about how to get to the point of being admired that doesn't always that leaves many others in their wake, and then makes them not the most reputable people to work with, and
Right.
or just be around. So
Yeah.
I had to ask myself that question, and figured it out very quickly in Los Angeles. But it was for me, how do I want to remember myself pursuing the thing I loved?
Mhm.
And
Because that pursuing it is really like
yeah.
that's the bread and butter, right? Like that's the heart and soul of it. And Cass and I were just talking in the last episode we recorded that everybody wants the results, but we don't know how to put the systems in place to get the results. And it's those small actions every day that actually get you to where you want to be. And so there's I'm always coming out with quotes or sayings or whatever, because I don't know, maybe I'm slightly autistic and that's how my brain works a little bit, but one of the things that they say in like Buddhist philosophy is like, before enlightenment, chop water, carry wood. After enlightenment, chop water, carry wood. Like you have to do the actual tasks. You have to chop wood, carry water, whatever. I probably said it backwards, but you have to do that as
I thought you were
practice
just being
every
profound
single
in
day.
Buddhism.
Yeah, I mean, I read it in a book, to be honest.
I was like, that somehow makes sense
A
to me.
fruitless
But it's like-
effort.
Right, yeah. They want you to practice something
The fruitless
so
effort, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
The point of it is that, like, if you're trying to reach enlightenment by chopping wood and carrying water, then you don't just stop that once you get there. You know what I mean? The enlightenment is realizing that that's all there is, is to do the process day in and day out. There's no magical end of the rainbow where you hit somewhere. It's just like, oh, I never have to do anything again. Like, you have to continue doing things the right way to reach that point. You can't get from A to B without having some kind of a system in place to get you there. And so, like, having that perseverance to keep showing up when things are boring, when things are working, when things are not working, like, just continuing to focus on the process of doing it, that's what really matters. And so you're never going to be happy with the result unless you're happy with the process of getting to the result. Those two things are tied together intrinsically. You know what I mean? If you get to the result, but you're miserable about how you got there, then you're not going to enjoy it at all.
Right. Yeah, I've seen so many biopics, and we've all seen them, about like, actors or singers and like how they got to where they are. They're all just miserable.
Yeah.
Like, how many of them bottom out on cocaine or heroin or something like that? And I'm just like, is that what I want?
Yeah.
Is that what I need? Can I still act somewhere else and be happy and, you know, just have my life at the same time? And the answer
Right.
is yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that quite a bit. That finding your happiness and defining success as to what that means to you.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, that kind of misery to get to your goals is something about the industry that's just always been the case. From Judy Garland to Keith Moon to Kurt Cobain, it's just no matter what decade you're in, no matter what generation you're in, it seems to be a staple, and it's very unfortunate. And so
And
one of the
what's
things I wanted to bring up along that topic is, last summer, or I guess a year and a half ago now, during the SAG after strike, I remember going to a couple of the protests with you up in Boston, and I'm more of a theater person, and I've never done any screen stuff, whereas you've done far more screen stuff. And so I was kind of coming into that and learning all about the struggles that you guys had been dealing with a fresh pair of eyes, and thinking, wow, I did not know it was this bad. And with the contract that you guys got that you were unsatisfied with, like, how did you come to terms with what was being done in your industry, with what you weren't satisfied with how you ultimately voted on that contract, and how you're kind of adapting and readjusting your course since?
Mm-hmm. I've never been one to shy away from new technology. I always think it's progressive and has the potential to help, but as many things in life, it also has the potential to hurt. The
right?
the AI question was why I voted no,
Yeah.
because the terms we were getting were still like wormholey enough, in my opinion, that they could still take your likeness and use it
Right.
without you. Well, not without your own. You would have to give consent. But here's the thing, and this is the only thing I'll say about this is they would have to tell you if they were going to use your likeness, and then if you said still no, I'd rather not, they'll give it to somebody else.
Right. So
So in
I'm
effect, they did cost you a job
yeah.
because you chose, whether you care or not, to give your likeness away,
Right.
or
So
not.
I'm not as
Yeah,
familiar, by the way, with what the vote was about, like what was going on. So just for anybody else who might be listening who's
sure.
not super familiar, can I just have a little explanation on what exactly this vote thing was for? It's part of
Mhm.
the Screen Actors Guild union contract, I suppose.
Yeah, it had to do with a lot of things. Mostly AI was the biggest question.
Right.
But what they did and what they were blowing their trumpets about at the end of the day when the thing did pass, with only 30%, 36% of SAG after voting on it. So I mean, I don't know exactly what kind of
Silly.
success they did have. Was we just get higher rates now for what we used to do, which is again because we're battling inflation and all this good fun stuff. So
Right.
you know they got us something, but it's still not to the point where and like many things in life, you can control what you can control.
Right.
I've had to accept a lot of things as an actor. Some of them gender based, race based, age based, whatever based, and it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So if
So
you're going to be an
how's
actor, stop trying to make sense of it. Just keep on going.
And the AI element of it was,
Yeah.
there were a lot of questions of, can we just use your likeness? And what that means is not, you know, do you consent to being on screen? Because obviously you do.
Yeah.
It's a, can we copy paste you anywhere we want? In some cases, in future projects, not even necessarily the one you've signed up for.
oh
And you can see in certain casting calls, because he's shown me quite a few, on the topic of Adam Sandler, Happy Gilmore, the new Happy Gilmore, I think is being filmed in Connecticut, I
Jersey.
believe, or Jersey. So
Yeah.
not too far. And they have these casting calls, and it says, like, you need to have a very traditional haircut. You cannot have tattoos. Things that Happy Gilmore as a character would probably be against.
yeah.
But, basically, if you look like me, you cannot be in this casting call, because what they want to do is hire as few people as they can and then mass copy paste to make big crowds.
I
And you
see.
can't be distinctive enough looking that people can be like, wait, why is that person in there twice?
Right.
You
Right.
need the most generic looking people so nobody notices. And that, you'd think that these production companies who have more money than God would be able to pay multiple people and help more people get into the industry. But they're not. And that was
No.
one of the big issues that they had to vote on.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
How do you
So
guys
I mean,
get
I was
paid in
okay.
general? Like, as excuse my ignorance for this, but like as a union actor, like, is there a scale? Is there a rate card or something like that? How does the pay usually work?
Yeah.
Because I'm just
So
like wondering.
if Cass and I were to do the same exact job today, we were to report as background extras on a SAG after project.
Hmm.
Before taxes, I believe I'm up to 181 for 8. So whether or not they use me for 8 hours or not, I am getting paid for 8 hours of work at
Okay.
181 before taxes. It used to be
181, just
$181
thank you.
For the day, right?
for the day.
For the
And
full 8
then
hours.
if you run into overtime, smoke pay, wet pay,
Define what that means.
they use a smoke machine, or if you're outside and it's raining, or they specifically designed for wet pay.
If you get wet or are
Yeah,
exposed to the
that's
elements.
these are pay bumps. So you get
Okay.
like, or if they have you bring your own wardrobe, or if you're traveling from a really far, sometimes they'll do
Yeah.
that.
So there's like a
Uh,
tier scale of sorts where
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
you get X amount and then there's like add-ons, basically like extra services kind of
right,
thing.
yeah.
Cool. That
All
makes
right.
sense.
Cass does the same thing I do. She gets rained on, smoked at, whatever. She's already making half, maybe about $100 base,
Oh, well,
and
obviously, because she's a
the
woman,
add-ons.
she should
Yeah,
get paid
so
less, of
right,
course.
and
Obviously.
but this is like, and I did background work as a non-union,
Yeah.
and
He's referring to the difference in union and non-union, by the
I
way.
see. I
yeah.
see. Yeah. I was making
So,
the joke about, obviously, it's because you're a woman, Cass, but yeah.
oh
No,
no,
sorry.
I
But that's
totally
not so far out
But
of the
no,
realm
yeah.
of possibility
No,
that
I'm
it
sure.
didn't need
I
clarification.
think
I'm
they
sure.
just got to that. No, I'm just kidding.
They probably did.
So I remember watching, to not further date myself, on Step Up to the Streets, back in the day as a non-union background actor, hearing all the union people just going like, keep running that clock, man. Yeah, we're getting extra time. And then they're like, what do we get? And they're like, nothing. I was like, wow. Okay. So you've got to really know what you're getting into. And
Yeah.
so when AI came along, um, at the SAG after strike, they said, how many of you did motion capture, quote unquote, for I Want to Dance with Somebody, that Whitney Houston biopic that they
Mhm.
filmed in Massachusetts? Like half the crowd raised their hand. They said, congratulations, they own your likeness now. You don't get to tell them when they can or can't use it for other movies.
Oh.
So,
And
you
there's no
know,
royalties or anything like that, I'm sure.
yeah, I found myself gravitating towards stage these days.
Yeah.
A, it helps me become a better actor, and B, I feel like nobody can do exactly what I'm doing and copy
Right.
and paste it, like, and try to put it on stage somewhere else.
They
Yeah.
literally
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
No, I would, and that's funny because you see, actors like Patrick Stewart who, like, after their TV and movie career, went back to acting on
Mhm.
Broadway and acting in theater and stuff like that. They feel it's a
Yeah.
more true form of the art form, as it were, because
Yeah.
that's how it's been for thousands of years. There's been plays, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And there are always, you notice when you see a theater actor in a TV show or a movie, they tend to be, especially in comedies, they tend to be better.
Yes.
Because you have to play to the back, they always say when you're on
Right.
stage. You have to be so big and expressive that even the people in the shittiest seats can understand what you're trying to convey.
Right.
There are no close-ups, you can't get really subtle about it. You have to be big.
Yeah.
So it does genuinely make you a better actor as well. But they tend to not pay,
Right.
especially around here. And luckily, New England is starting to get bigger into that. I mean, I remember taking Appa for a walk and running into Keenan and Kel in their hamburger car when they were
Right.
doing Good Burger 2 in Providence.
That's funny.
And that kind of stuff never used to happen. But with the opportunities getting bigger around here, they're also getting more dangerous because of all of that stuff that we were just mentioning. So it becomes quite a balancing act, and it's something that you've had to deal with, and I really haven't.
Yeah. Yeah. It was not, I was not happy about being one of the people that said I voted no.
Right.
But at the same time, I just didn't want people to take my face and then, or no, I'm sorry, ask to take my likeness. And then when I say no, turn around and give it to some other actor who has no problem doing it.
Right.
So everybody's got their line.
Right.
That was my line. And
That
I
makes sense.
know, and I'm saying this right now, that I know it has already and will cost me work.
Yeah.
But it's
It's
like I said, why am I doing this? Am I doing this for them?
right. No, that makes sense. And like
You
you
know?
have to do it because you enjoy doing it. And that's what we're always talking about on the show is like, are
Mhm.
you actually enjoying the thing that you're doing day in and day out? You know what I mean? Or are you just working towards something because you think it's right, because it gives you the finances, the financial needs are covered, or is it because you actually genuinely like what you're doing? And if you love something enough, you can find a way to make that work without having to sacrifice everything that's important to you. And it's like for every person out there who's in big blockbuster movies, there's for every one actor in those, there's hundreds of people just making a living. It's the same thing
Mhm.
with musicians. For every Ed Sheeran and Taylor Swift, there's hundreds of people who are playing in bars every other weekend, and that's their income. You know what I mean? Like there's a couple of people I know that have just made music their life. They play gigs all the time, and that's it. And they really enjoy doing it. They're not looking to be the next Beatles or whatever. They just want to play music and enjoy their lives and be happy. And we don't always, I don't think, leave enough space for that in the current society. You know what I mean? It always has to be that all or nothing. It's like, well, I'm either going to be a star or I'm just going to work at the local bank branch every and if that's what you like and if you don't hate your job, cool. But just realize that there's steps in between. There's no like black and white, either you're a movie star or you're nothing. Like there's plenty of ways to do this, to do what you love without it having to be what everybody thinks of as like the big huge I've made it kind of thing.
Mhm. Yeah.
And sometimes that pressure of being in the spotlight is what drives people to be miserable.
Yeah.
I mean, to circle back to Kurt Cobain, one of the driving problems that led to his, unfortunate death was the fact that he didn't really want mainstream success. He never expected it. He wasn't doing anything to get in the limelight. He was just being himself, which he never viewed as marketable. And
Right.
judging by the glam 80s, it wasn't really marketable. And all of a sudden, he starts, he didn't start it, but he was the first big mainstream grunge musician.
Yeah.
And he starts this wave that he never wanted to start and was so overwhelmed. And you can't equate being famous with being happy. And if your
Exactly.
definition of success is liking and loving the life you live, which is what we try to promote on this podcast, then being the next Nirvana is not going to be your way to get that. If you are of a similar mind, you're not going to be happy just because you're famous.
Exactly right. And you mentioned something which kind of triggered a thought in my brain, is that like being of a similar mind, right? It's like Kurt didn't know that there was hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people out there who identified with him and the way that he felt and the way that he, shared his music and his own internal feelings and thoughts as music really resonated with a lot of people who said, "Hey, I feel that way too." You know what I mean? And this guy is putting it into words. And it started this whole movement and this whole sort of style of music where people realize, like, hey, I don't care. I'm going to be me. This is how I feel. And I identify with this. And so that kind of brings me back to a point of like, we started talking about at the beginning, is like finding your community. So,
Mhm.
you have to kind of be in that world and have that community to get into these things. So I want to hear a little bit about like the process of networking and the process of finding that group of people who like you relate to and identify with, and like what's that like out there in the real world.
Okay. Yeah. So it will never be the same for everyone.
Right.
I'll go ahead and start that off right now. The example for me of networking that I never thought would land me where it landed me was the closest I ever got to Broadway was I did a stage reading at the Puerto Rican Traveling Theater Company on 47th and 8th. Um, And Scarface's mom gave me snaps after my performance. So I was like, oh shit. You know how I got that? I got introduced to a guy because I helped a friend's friend move out of her apartment in Brooklyn.
That's always how it works, right?
He's like, I know a guy who needs a guy for a reading. You want me to give you, are you an actor? Yeah. The guy calls me that day, like an hour after I get home from helping them move. I'm in his place the next day doing a stage reading with him. He then has another piece that then landed me at that theater, and I did that whole thing. But that's because I helped a college friend move out of her apartment.
Yeah.
So that's networking.
Never know.
Signing up for seminars, that's also networking. That's probably a much easier way to get into acting or finding people in the business. Catering, found a lot of actors there.
Hang out where people are, right?
Yep.
Like where are all the actors? They're all working in food service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because again, it's like you said, for that one time or the one person you see on screen, everybody else is acting, or doing another job during that because they didn't get the part.
Right.
So actors are off doing something at all times, whether we like it or not. So yeah, it's like we're like ants. We'll crawl anywhere and make a nice little mountain and create a nice little community for ourselves, no matter where I go. And I do know that in New York, LA, Chicago, and here, I do have a group of actor friends that I will forever hold in my heart. And no matter where you go, they'll still be your buds, and that's what's beautiful for me.
And I've noticed that, like, when I was making out the wedding invitations, you have people in LA, people in Milwaukee, people in Chicago, people in Georgia, which is why we wanted to do like a, quote unquote destination thing, because I knew right off the bat, all of his people are going to have to travel.
Right.
Mine wouldn't. So let's just make it fair.
Yeah.
Everybody's traveling. And it is very cool seeing, even when you like post a Facebook status, this outpouring of, national support for you in your personal life.
Yeah.
And it shows, what kind of a person you are and what kind of communities that no matter how different Maryland is from LA mentality wise, you still manage to find this loyalty and these loves and these friendships, no matter where you've gone. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. And it shows how adaptable you are.
You have to be.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be. I for my own personal reasons, I tried and I'll just say race wise, I had to adapt, find ways to chameleon myself to get by. And then once I started going to therapy, then I was able to peel back and start to examine who I am. So when you talk about community, I have a little bit of a Jewish community. I have an acting community. I have a food service community. And then I just have geographical communities. Sometimes they intertwine, sometimes they don't. But it's less, and the older I got, to me, it was less about what the background was and more about who they were as people and what they did.
Right. And it's cool because we also see this shift at the same time that we're becoming more of like a globalized society. Like distances aren't really mattering so much. We're on a video call right now.
Yeah.
So it's like this kind of thing has really, I think, broadened people's horizons. And you're right, it's not always geographical, but that's often like how it starts. You know what I mean? Case in point, football teams. You know what I mean? Like this is a big source of kind of communing with those people. And even now living in New England and not living near Philadelphia, like I still have a way that I feel connected to a lot of people back home, where I grew up because of that shared interest. Like I have a friend from when I was when I was a teenager from the same area who now lives in England. And when we were visiting London, my wife and I went and had dinner and drinks with her because it's like, even after all of these years, like we still had that common bond and all across the world. It's like, oh, hey, that's cool. I actually know somebody who lives here at this place that we're visiting as a destination. Like it's just one of those odd things that happens in this day and age. And like, it's really cool. Is that primarily how you get work these days? Or are you looking at backstage, like casting calls, or are you mostly getting referred?
I got, I got hired by an agency, in April of 2020. Okay. So then I got,
Did they call? It's like, hey,
my
by the
timing,
way, are you good at voice acting?
yeah, I just got to get this microphone and another headset. And
We
then,
have talked about going into voice acting because
Yeah.
it's a good way around that AI imaging stuff.
Yeah, it's on my to-do list. Trust me, everybody and their mom has been like, "You have got to do this," and I was like, "I know, I don't have the equipment, or I don't know what's going on." So
it's something I've thought about too, for what it's worth.
yeah, I got to get over that hump real quick because that's another job right there that you can create for yourself and do on your own time. I'm sorry. What were we?
So we were talking about the agency. Like, how do you get work now? Is the agency
yeah.
primarily doing that for you?
Yeah, so the agency sends me. Actually, I have to tape an audition either today or tomorrow. But they send you things, and you just submit via tape, and the rest is history. You just do it and then forget about it. Like, that's the mindset you got to do. Right. I signed up with Central Casting. That's always a good one to do. You can look online. There's a lot of places you can take classes, and they offer many opportunities to meet different people. So
cool.
Yeah. And New England is a very tight knit community. Everybody seems to know everybody.
And you've seen the difference even just moving from Massachusetts to Rhode Island, because we're so tiny. Everybody knows everybody, literally.
It's crazy. Like, I don't think I've lived here all that long in the grand scheme of things. And I still can't go to the damn grocery store without running into somebody. You know what I mean? It's like, I didn't go to high school here. I didn't go to college here. Like, I've been here for just over 10 years, and I cannot go anywhere without running into somebody I know or somebody I don't want to see or something like that. So it's like, it's funny to me how quickly that happens around here, because like Rhode Island sort of feels like one huge small town, even though there's like lots of
really
towns.
does.
And that's funny to me growing up in New Jersey, and like you drive a half hour, 45 minutes away from where you live in New Jersey, and it's like you're in a different planet, whereas Rhode Island, the whole state feels like you're in the same city.
Yeah. Where I grew up, it was a 5-minute drive anywhere.
Yeah.
At least you had your immediate neighbors, but then that was it.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Then you gotta, then you couldn't walk the streets. Like there was no place to walk. So, you had to drive everywhere, but yeah.
It's kind of funny how like we're almost in this like overabundance of community. You know what I mean? Where there's like too many options, too many people. And there's like, you get to a point where it's like, if you just say yes to everything and everyone, then you just spread way too thin. So like, you've got to think about what you're doing and what you're focusing on and spending time doing. Otherwise, like for me, I'll get lost in the sauce and just be like trying to do 10 different things, and I have to stop myself and remind myself like, hey, these are your priorities, these are what you're focused on. Like, don't say yes to something if it's not supporting those goals, even though you might really want to do it. I'm not saying don't have fun and don't try different things, but like, if you are already scrambling for time to do what you need to do, why are you taking on more things? So it's like, it's similar with people. Sometimes I find it's like, yes, I want to be friendly and polite and friends with everyone, but I've realized that I have to have boundaries at some point in my life, and not just like let everything into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, because the burnout will happen.
Oh, for sure. Sure. And I mean, go ahead.
Any art form is very networking based. And sometimes it's hard to get out of the ambitious, practical mentality of every time I socialize with somebody is a job opportunity that might appear somewhere down the line. Because then you start sacrificing the genuineness of your connections to, am I just responding to this person because I think something might happen? Or, and that's something I really wasn't thinking about when I was still doing the investment work, but I've noticed has been creeping up now. And I'm like, stop doing that.
Right.
You have to do it to an extent, but not so much that you sacrifice what was drawing people to you in the first place.
Yeah.
And
it's got to be like a constant balancing act that you're always trying to feel out. Like there's no like setting for that in your brain. Like you just have to constantly be dealing with that.
Yes, especially in this like post-Christmas lull in the entertainment industry. Like regular gigs won't really start up for us again until spring.
Right.
And we've talked so much about all the weird random shit that I do for work, but Matt is responsible for setting me up with a lot of those jobs. And so when you start networking and when you do things like that, like, how did you even find out about some of these jobs? Because we did that whole episode about jobs we didn't know exist.
All
Why
right.
don't we do
So,
like two or three like specific examples? Like think of a job that you like kind of stumbled into, or like a job that you could give an example of like how you got into it that like people might not think of.
yep. Two of my murder mystery actresses from the Boston region here had just signed on with a Princess Party company, and they needed a Spider-Man. And
Define what the Princess Company is, because it's a.
it's well, now there's like a lot of them in the region, but at the
Yeah.
time there was like maybe four.
But
And
what they do.
so we go to kids' birthday parties. We play with them for an hour, or we do public events, and
Like
we meet.
like a character actor,
Yeah,
basically. Like
characters:
you're going
Spider-Man,
as Spider-Man.
Batman, Elsa, Anna. Like
You're great, Anna.
all the people that you see. Oh yeah.
Was the wretched looking Barney that we have on home video for my first birthday party maybe a part of that? Because I swear it did not look like
No,
the show
our
at
our
all.
mascot, the Olafs got progressively better, as in eventually you could breathe in them.
Yeah.
But
I just remember, like, I'll have to see if I
oh
can get
god,
a
yeah.
clip on the show, but like
Please do, please
watching
do.
home videos with Marissa, and there's one of my first birthday party, and it's like a scary,
Barney.
awful looking dinosaur thing that you could hardly tell is Barney, and like all of the kids are screaming, and it's just like, who thought that this was a fucking good idea? Obviously some ill-informed but well-intentioned parents of mine, I suppose.
You see it when they try.
Yeah.
You go to these birthday parties and they got petting zoos and they got like horse rides, and then I'm like, why is Spider-Man here? Like I am
Yeah.
like fifth fiddle for this kid's fourth birthday. And that actually happened. I showed up, the kid got scared, ran away, didn't come out for the entire hour. So I was left entertaining his best friend, whose name is Xavier. That's how much I remember the kid. And just was like hanging out with him for the entire hour. There's a pony ride going, there's a bouncy house, a clown, and the kid's inside crying because he finally met Spider-Man and got freaked out because I was too life-size for him.
You know what they say, don't meet your heroes, right?
Yeah.
You never know how these things are gonna like work.
Mm-hmm.
We have a friend of ours, and this is one of our favorite stories, who was asked to be Luigi at like a Super Mario event.
Oh, yeah.
And he explains this as, I was doing what I felt was an incredibly offensive, stereotypical Italian accent because I don't know how to do one, and their accents are already so exaggerated. So he's doing his thing, and he's like, man, I hope no one's offended by this. This is real bad. And then somebody introduces him to some kid, and they're like, hey, this is Giuseppe. He's from Italy, and he loves Mario. He's dying to meet you. And all this guy, all Luigi can think to do is just go, oh no.
Yeah.
So you never know how this stuff is gonna go.
Oh yeah, like I just joined a Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons tribute band, and that was because a caterer here in Rhode Island was like, "Do you sing?" And I was like, "Sure," because I guess he heard my voice, and he's like, "Yeah, I got this guy doing a Frankie Valli tribute band. I'll send you his info."
That's funny.
Boom. Yeah.
They're really good too.
Yeah, you really never know how that is going to happen. You know what I mean?
Just,
and it's
yeah.
like, it's sometimes the randomest, most weird things. You know what I mean? Like a guy that I met working on film. So through a friend of a friend, I got involved with the 48-hour film project in Providence a while back. So I was interested in it and was making a lot of like, small film type things on my own just to be funny and, making YouTube clips. And a friend of mine was going to school and introduced me to a different friend of his. By the name of Joel. So Joel and I became buddies doing the 48-hour film project together. I worked on his project, and then he found out that I cooked. And years later, when he and his wife were getting married, they asked me to cater their wedding because I was doing a catering business at the time. So I did. And then from that, they wanted barbecue. And then years later, they told me, man, people, whenever we talk to somebody about the wedding, all they ever talk about is how good the food was. It was really good brisket and the pulled pork and everything. And so that was right before 2020 happened. And that gave me the idea. The government started handing out $1,200 checks, and I bought a smoker, and my wife and I started doing barbecue and selling barbecue out of like our little tiny apartment to make some extra money during COVID. And then people that I met and had fun with doing that eventually became contacts for other things. So it's all like this domino effect of like, my friend, the other guitar player in my band, introducing me to this other friend of his from school, started off as like, let's do this film thing together, to like, you kind of brought up the idea of me making barbecue, you know, and it's like so odd how these things connect to each other, but they don't, you know, but it's just like those weird threads through your friendships and relationships. Like there's been people I've had in my life who I didn't talk to for years, and then now all of a sudden, like I find relating to and working with, and, you know, having other opportunities with. So it's just crazy to me how that's all tied together. And I think we see such a micro view of it here in Rhode Island and just New England in general, because it's such a close-knit community. So it's very important to like be part of that. And like people say, well, how do I start? It's like, well, just go and start, and you will eventually make those connections and meet those people over time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of all the places that you lived, how did you realize that New England was where you wanted to stay?
It was the place I could feel that I could be myself the most.
And that's important.
You know, for a lot of my 20s was I was young and, you know, chasing a career and chasing women, unfortunately, you know, like I wasn't really thinking about like, where am I going to thrive? You know, I just like all actors move to New York. So that's what I did. And but, you know, New York was cool because there was enough diversity there that nobody gave a crap. But then you start going to other places, and it, you know, people start like the Starbucks I went to in Iowa, I may have caused 5 heart attacks. I don't know why. But like I get here to New England, and what I appreciate about New England.
I'm still thinking about the Starbucks thing. What did you do to people?
I walked in to the Starbucks in Iowa, and 5 white people there did not know what to do with
that
it.
Yes.
You
I thought you served in that like Panera.
No.
You looked very different than what people were expecting to see.
I wasn't peddling any other Colombian wares in the Starbucks. None of that. No, I just was breathing as a brown person in Iowa, and
the audacity.
Yeah, I know it was. Yeah.
Big old diss to
I've
Iowa,
had less grander
you know?
entrances on stage. You know what I mean? So I get here to New England, and what I will say about New England is like everybody's got their pluses and minuses. So like, you know, say what you want about that, about New England and how, you know, apparently racist it used to be, or I don't care about that. Like New Englanders will tell you how they feel about you within a minute of meeting you. And I am so thankful for that.
Yeah.
Like just not even as a brown person, just as a person.
Yeah.
Because like I lived in LA for 1 year, and people I knew for 6 months, I still didn't know if they liked me or not.
Oh yeah.
And it was like networking, because that's all they did. So it was like, I don't know if they were in this for the friendship or for the fact that I once knew a guy that I possibly introduced them to. But
It's
here
like,
they're like, I'm trying to get to this place, get out of my way, nice shirt, cool hair, commanders suck, and they'll move on. And they'll, you know, say something like that. I'll be like, man, that was a very fruitful exchange.
Not the bless your heart kind
right,
of.
Right. Yeah. Then aren't you just so special?
It's
you know,
so
like
true.
that kind of thing, you know, like that, like church lady on you. You know, I'm just like, you know, I don't have time for that.
I'm with you. Like one thing that I cannot tolerate is just like bullshit. You know what I mean? It's like, don't beat around the bush. Just tell me. Like I have no patience. My brain does not give me enough patience to listen to you pretend to do something or be like, just get to the fucking point and tell me you hate me. I don't really care if you do or you don't, because I'm cool enough with me. But like, just don't let me waste my time and effort being nice to you if you're just a jackass. You know, just
that's why
put it out there.
The New England locals that I would give Lyft rides to, like the ones I didn't pick up from the airport, would always ask, like, "Where's your favorite place between like, you know, New York, LA, Chicago, here?" I was like, New England, and it would always be a 3-second pause, and then they go, "Why?" And then I had to explain to them, because like they lived there their whole lives. They're like, what's so special about this place? I'm like, well, you got to live somewhere else to really appreciate what this place has to offer. And I was like, your blatant and brutal honesty is something I value, because it has helped me as an actor. Just the directors here are just like, you're doing this. Please don't do this.
Especially in Boston.
Right. And they're like, this is good. Keep that. Don't do this. And I was like, sweet. Because like some other people will be like, well, I really liked how you approached this, but maybe next time if you want to try, you know.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Like, Lumberg's coming at me with acting notes.
But it's like, how else do you, so sometimes I think like, how else do you expect people to get the fucking point, right? Like, how do you expect me to know what you want from me unless you just tell me? To me, that seems like the most efficient way, is if you have a thought that you want me to know, it should just open your fucking mouth and say it, right? Like,
Yeah.
how does that not make more sense to everybody else in other places in the world? And like, having traveled a little bit, like, I see it in other places too. And it's funny to me, like, going to different states or different countries and seeing the way that people are. And I'm just like, you're all fugazi. You know what I mean? This is all bullshit. Like, just open your mouth and tell me. Tell me you hate me. Hit me. I don't care. I'd rather you just be straight with me and be an asshole than beat around the bush and be polite. It's like, I've heard the saying or seen the meme a million times that like the East Coast and New England in particular, we're kind, but we're not nice. In other places, they're nice, but they're not kind.
Yeah.
You know, it's
yeah.
like they'll be nice to your face, but they're not actually being kind to you. They're
Yeah.
double talk, you know?
Yes.
Whereas here we'll be like, fuck you, like your shirt, get
Right,
out of my
exactly,
way.
yeah,
You know,
right,
it's
yeah.
like they'll shovel your driveway the day after telling you, you know, that you're a piece of shit for liking the Eagles or whatever it is. It's like,
we
that's cool.
shoveled your driveway last because you like Philly, but
Yeah,
you know,
but we still shoveled it for
we
you.
didn't get your sidewalk. But
Yeah,
we
it's
got
like,
your
I'll
driveway.
be annoyed about it the whole time, and you're gonna know, but I'll still tell you the directions. It's like, all right, you idiot, you never been here before.
right.
What are you, some kind of dummy? You don't know where you're going? Yeah, turn left. Turn. It's like they'll give you instructions.
Turn
while
left at the
complaining.
fucking Dunkin' guy.
Yeah,
Yeah, right, yeah,
Up
the-
your
Which
ass
one?
and to
The
the
one
left.
on Branch Ave guy. Come on.
Not the one on Adams, not the one on Washington, and not the one on Main. It's the one at the corner of Elk and Ohm, but near the Adams behind the
And
high
neither
school.
of the
Yeah.
ones on
Right,
Washington.
yeah.
Okay,
It's
you
like,
stay
I'm
away from
gonna do you a favor. If you go to the Dunkies, go to this one, because the other ones, the managers are fucking jackasses. But you go to this one, they make your coffee all right most of the time.
He
Just
dated
know
my
what to
sister,
expect.
didn't call her, you know, like, it was one of, no, I didn't think anybody in New England liked me for the first 3 months I lived here.
Yeah.
I am not kidding. And then like all of my actors were like, well, were they smiling when they said this, this, and this? And I was like, yeah, it was weird.
You're still not good at picking up signals.
And they were like, oh
Yeah.
no, and then
I'm not
They
always
like-
great at the signals either, but it's like I have to give disclaimers to people in my life. It's that like if I'm teasing you or busting your balls a little bit, it's because I like you. If I don't like you, I'm not spending any of my effort joking around with you, busting your balls. Like I just want as little to do with talking to you as possible. And I'm coming off as sounding like there's so many people that I just hate and don't talk. It's not the case. I'm just saying in general, like if I'm busting your balls, if I'm teasing you a little bit, it's because I want to have some kind of banter and discourse and back and forth with you. If I really don't care to talk to you, I'm just not talking to you. You know, like
trust me, yeah. There's listeners and watchers right now who are thinking of the people that they joke around with, and then just thinking of the people that they're like, I want nothing to do with this person right now, and
exactly.
like they remember the specific time they shut them out.
Yeah. And it's
that's
funny,
and
like,
that's okay because
that's sometimes when I feel like, you know, I'm not exactly mad at the way my brain is, you know, because I am slightly on the spectrum. I do have ADHD. Like my brain does not work like most people's does, but in some ways I'm kind of thankful for it because I have no problem being that straightforward and honest with people to a fault at sometimes where I actually sometimes need to learn better how to be polite and nice in certain situations. But I'm in my 30s. I'm getting it, you know, I'm getting the hang of it now, but it's like one of those things where it's like, I'm thankful that my brain works that way because I don't want to have to spend so much energy and effort thinking about how to pretend to like care or be nice or whatever. Like if I don't care, I don't, and I'm not going to pretend. My brain has very little energy for the things I actually have to and want to do in my life. I'm not wasting it on doing shit that doesn't matter for people I don't care about. And trust me, it's not like, you know, there's a list of people that I'm like, I don't care about these people, fuck them. Like, but in general, like if I don't find some reason that, you know, I need to spend effort on something, I'm not going to do it. So it just doesn't make sense to me to be pretend nice to people that you don't care about when you could just be like, hey, I'm happy to help you with your problem because that's my job. And we'll just leave it at that, you know?
don't wait until you're 40 to realize it like I did.
Yeah.
Like I realized I spent too many years acting off stage around people and it tired me out to be a good actor on stage. Now I'm just trying to be a good actor on stage. I don't even act like happy around people, like people I just don't want to be. It's just like they'll see it. It'll be pretty noticeable now.
Yeah, it's that unmasking process. You know, you don't realize how much of your mental energy is going into that until you stop doing it and start peeling that mask back and just be like, this is how I am. You know what I mean? And you will attract the people that are correct for you, you know, in your life. You know, if you're thinking that you're going to be repelling people because they won't like who you are, Why do you care if people who don't like who you are like you? Fuck them. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
not to be blunt about it, but if people don't
No, let's
care,
be blunt about it.
if people don't like who you are, then what do you care if they like you or not? Like, why would you give a shit? If you like, sure, there might be opportunities, but at the same time, I'd rather have an opportunity from somebody that I care about rather than having to be like beholden to this guy that or gal or whoever that I can't stand because I need their job or their networking or their opportunity. It's like I'm perfectly okay with saying no to the things that I will lose out on by not by being myself, because I can't be any other way at this point in my life.
Yeah, there is a new New England and specifically Rhode Island has taught me, but my dad always told me to never burn bridges. But like Rhode Island has taught me how to finely tune how to not burn a bridge, and also not to talk to somebody like
Yeah.
ever again if you need to like cut them out of your life for whatever
Right.
reason. So
Right.
there are ways to be professional about it. Especially if you're trying to network in such a small area such as New England. But at the same time, it's not worth sacrificing your personal
No.
core beliefs or happiness or values or really.
No. Because your responsibility is to you and yourself at the end of the day, and obviously, some of us have spouses or partners, and like obviously you have responsibility to them as well. But on a deeper level, your responsibility to yourself is to be true to yourself. And if you can't do that because of the people that you're surrounding yourself with, you need to just have a think about who you're surrounding yourself with.
Right.
And if that's really what is best for you,
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, I met some great people in LA, but like the bigger picture was it wasn't for me, and that's totally okay.
Yeah. Nothing wrong.
The weather was great.
Oh, yeah. The smog, maybe not so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something about rising tuberculosis again. I don't know.
Something about that.
Got a touch of the consumption. It's fine.
So, I mean, we've covered a lot in the past hour or so. So, kind of coming up to the end of our time, I want to know, is there any sort of final words of wisdom or advice or something you'd give to someone who's trying to, break into the acting world, or just in general do something that makes them happy rather than, checks a box?
You hear this all the time. You really got to want it. And because earmuffs, darling, because I'm such a hypersensitive Virgo, I've spent too much time over analyzing myself. And I've just gotten to the point where I'm now moving past that. So don't take yourself too seriously, but take yourself seriously enough that people want to be in the room with you. But not too seriously that they want to leave the room.
Right.
So, like for your comedians, read the room, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, just,
Like,
but as an actor, make them want to be
seriously
in the room with you.
Yeah.
And also give yourself time to do other things. Please.
Awesome.
Your career is not your life, and your life is not your career. One gig, one show that you did back then when you played the lead does not define you, nor does the shit shoveling background person you played in a mobster movie. That does not mean that you're pond scum. You did what you had to do. You got your check. You're waking up the next day. So keep at it. Surround yourself with good people. It's like you said. And just always have the mindset that like, even if the world's going to be crazy, just keep doing you, because it's not going to change. So yeah.
Not anytime soon, at least.
No.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I think that
thank you for having me.
Of course. Yeah. We're very happy to have you on here. Is there anything you'd like to plug? Any sort of, projects that you're working on that you'd like to share anything about?
Sure. Yeah. I will actually be gracing the stage as Jonathan Harker in Dracula at the Newton Theater Company. And then in a couple of months, a friend of ours, Chad Moores, has written 2 plays that...
Shout out to Chad.
Yep. That we will be putting on. One is called How Did It Go Again? I'm a smaller part in that. Cass is more of the lead. And then Echoes of Kobe, where I'm a supporting role. Cass is also the lead.
Yeah, but you're like my boyfriend, and we have to get close to each other, and it's gross.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the intimacy coordination.
Yeah, it's going to be so weird.
Yeah.
But he plays my son in the first one, which is extra weird.
That's a bit of a fun one. We'll let
I'm
everybody.
I'm in flashbacks. That's how that works. But the Dracula is Newton, Massachusetts. If anyone's interested, and it's extra fun because they're doing Dracula in a church.
Wow.
And it's female leads. So we have a woman Dracula, a woman Renfield, and a woman Van Helsing. And it actually really works out very well.
That sounds awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm very much looking forward to it, and I hope that our guests or our listeners will check it out. And thank you very much again, Matt Goldstein, everybody. I appreciate you being here. I'm Aaron.
I'm Cass.
And I'm Matt.
And this has been Fuck the Plan. Thank you, guys. If you'd like to be on the show, we're always looking for guests to share their stories of how they said fuck the plan and started focusing on creating a life that matters to them. If that sounds like you, please email stories@fucktheplan.com and tell us yours.